DC has definitely made the childhoods of many, including mine, so to pay homage to the corporation, I will be doing an iceberg video on them. This is the DC Iceberg. Now, for those new to the concept of an iceberg is a tier list where, depending on the topic you talk about, that's what it ranges from. If you're talking about disturbing topics, then it would range from least disturbing to most disturbing. If you're just talking about common facts, knowledge, trivia, or talking about something that pertains to a show or a franchise, then it would range from most common knowledge or most common fact to least or unknown facts about the show. And if you're lucky, down at the bottom, you'll probably get some theories. Now, with that out of the way, let's start with the first layer of the iceberg. The Dark Knight Returns is a 1986 four-issue comic book miniseries starring Batman, written by Frank Miller, illustrated by Miller and Klaus Janson, with color by Lynn Varley, and published by DC Comics. It was later adapted into a movie, though the movie wasn't received very well. Kryptonite is a fictional material that appears primarily in Superman stories. In its best known form, it is a green crystalline material originating from Superman's homeworld of Krypton that emits peculiar radiation that weakens Superman, but is generally harmless to humans when exposed to it in the short term, but deadly in the long term. There are other varieties of kryptonite, such as red and gold kryptonite, which have different but still generally negative effects on Superman. Darkseid is a fictional supervillain who is the tyrannical ruler of the planet Apocalypse, whose ultimate goal is to enslave the universe by eliminating all hope and free will in sentient beings. Bizarro is a character who is basically the opposite of Superman. The character has often been portrayed as an antagonist to Superman, though on occasion he also takes the role as an anti-hero, and has appeared in both comic books and graphic novels as well as other DC comic related products such as animated and live action television series, trading cards, toys, and video games. The multiverse within DC Comics publications is a cosmic construct collecting many of the fictional universes in which the published stories take place. The worlds in this multiverse share space and fate in common, and its structure has changed several times in the history of DC Comics. There are in total 52 multiverses. Superman has died a total of 15 times, possibly more. I can't go in depth into all of them, so I'll just name all the times. There was Infinite Crisis, The Final Days of Superman, The Kingdom, Countdown, Arena, DC Universe vs. Masters of the Universe, The Price of Victory, Countdown to Final Crisis, The School for Superman Assassins, that one was just filled with pure insanity, Fatherland, The Carnival of Souls, Camelot Falls, Absolute Power, DC Universe Online Legends, The Power and Glory, and The Death of Superman. Superman Red Sun is a 3-issue prestige format comic book miniseries published by DC Comics that was released under their Elseworlds imprint in 2003. Arthur Mark Millar created the comic with the premise, what if Superman had been raised in the Soviet Union? It received critical acclaim and was nominated for the 2004 Eisner Awards for Best Limited Series. In Red Sun, Superman's rocket ship lands on a Ukrainian collective farm rather than in Kansas. Instead of fighting for truth, justice, and the American way, Superman is described in the Soviet radio broadcasts as the champion of the common worker who fights a never-ending battle for Stalin, socialism, and the international expansion of the Warsaw Pact. His civilian identity is a state secret. In the comic A Death in the Family, at the end of Batman number 427, Jason was beaten by the Joker and left to die in an explosion. The inside back cover of the issue listed two 1-900 numbers that readers could call to vote for the character's death or survival. Within the 36 hours allotted for voting, the poll received 10,614 votes. The verdict in favor of the character's death won by a slim 72-vote margin. The following issue, Batman number 428, was published featuring Todd's death. Years later, O'Neill said hundreds of votes in the Jason dies line might have come from a single person, adding a large degree of uncertainty to the honesty of results regarding the poll designed to determine the character's popularity. Now, in other words, what I just said, there's a possible chance that the whole thing was possibly rigged. Okay, so that was the end of Layer 1. Now we'll be moving on to Layer 2. Now, Layer 2 has much more entries than Layer 1, and the reason that some of the things are here in Layer 2 is because while we know about them, people who aren't avid readers of DC Comics or don't know much about DC wouldn't know where half of these things originated from or wouldn't know about it any at all. So without further ado, let's get into Layer 2. I'll see you guys there. The Batman of Earth 2 is an alternate version of the fictional superhero who appears in the golden age of comic books. Now, what's different about this Batman is that this Batman is more violent than his counterpart, and judging by the comic strips, is more unlikely to have killed. Doomsday is a rampaging, seemingly mindless, murdering monster who is the only one in the main comics continuity to ever kill Superman. He is the result of Kryptonian genetic engineering gone awry. Now, as you can see on the screen, Doomsday pretty much just crushed a child to death. Now, I couldn't find anything on this, so there are likely two possibilities as what this entry could be referencing. This entry could be referencing Doomsday Clock, but the thing about that is that Dr. Manhattan didn't die in Doomsday Clock. Superman pretty much left him alone to tend to other things. Or it could be talking about the ongoing debate of who is stronger, Superman or Dr. Manhattan. Watchmen is a comic book maxi-series by the British creative team of writer Alan Moore, artist Dave Gibbons, and colorist John Higgins. It was published by DC Comics in 1986 and 1987 and collected in a single volume edition in that same year. Watchmen originated from a story proposal Moore submitted to DC featuring superhero characters that the company had acquired from Charlton Comics. Now, Moore's proposal would have left many of the characters unusable for future stories, so managing editor Dick Giordano convinced Moore to create original characters instead. In Batman number 55, KGBs, presumably under orders from Bane, tried to kill Nightwing, or at least tried to kill Nightwing, leading to a snowy smackdown in Alaska, and Batman making a certain decision in Batman number 57, which was to leave KGBs with a broken neck in the snow for dead. KGBs eventually survives and lives to see another day, though if nobody found KGBs, chances are he would have probably died. In the same issue I previously talked about, Nightwing gets shot in the head by KGBs, and this causes amnesia. Now, KGBs ends up returning to Bloodhaven to try to finish the job, but as I talked about in the previous entry, we all know how that turned out. Batman in the Darkest Night is a one-shot comic book published in 1994 and written by Mike W. Barr with art by Jerry Bingham. The comic is an Elseworld story in which Bruce Wayne becomes the Green Lantern instead of Hal Jordan. Superman vs. Muhammad Ali is an oversized celebrity comics comic book, try saying that 3 times fast, published by DC Comics in 1978. The 72-page book features Superman teaming up with the heavyweight boxing champion Muhammad Ali to defeat an alien invasion of Earth. Yes, these two end up fighting and Muhammad Ali ends up winning the fight because Superman doesn't use his actual powers. Now, most of us know how Jason Todd dies, which is he gets beaten by the Joker and left for dead, and most of us know how he's resurrected via the Lazarus Pit thanks to Ra's al Ghul. But in a different dimension, Superboy Prime once punched the dimension walls so hard that he changed reality, which is what brought Jason Todd back to life. Not even the Golden Age Superman was able to do that. Furnace is an alternate psyche that developed when the Martian Manhunter unlocked his genetic memories. The Justice League stopped its attempts to destroy humanity and replace it with its own offspring. In Earth 10, Superman was one of the superhumans appointed by Adolf Hitler to be his heroes, and Superman became a member of the I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that word, let's just call it Gerech, who are enforcers of the Nazis' regime. Alright, so I'm not sure what this entry refers to since Grail is immortal and can't be killed by any conventional means. So if you guys know what this is referring to, please tell me in the comment section below. Now, we all know the meme where Batman basically slaps Robin, but where it actually originates from is the 1965 comic book World's Finest, number 153. Now, it's basically in an alternate reality in which Batman believes that Superboy and Superman are responsible for the death of his father. Well, that's the end of Layer 2, now it's time to move on to Layer 3. Now Layer 3 has more theories and more things that the average person would not really know. So, let's get into it. This refers to the theory that perhaps Superman didn't get killed by Doomsday, rather that Superman died in the comics without anybody noticing and was replaced by a clone made of sand. Now, NerdSync has a great video on this, so if you want to check that out, I'll link it in the description. Earth D Superman is like Superman, but get this, he's black. Yep, DC was real creative with that one. Now, this is based around the Killing Joke. Now, it is theorized that the Joker raped Barbara Gordon, seeing that he forcibly undresses Barbara and takes photos of her naked body without her consent. The implication clearly seems to be that he did also sexually assault her and probably engage in unwanted sexual intercourse with her, though neither of that is specifically shown. Now, there's a comment from Dominic Paredes that pretty much sums up my whole thoughts on this theory, and it reads, "That's not really the Joker's style. Don't get me wrong, it's not that he wouldn't do it or couldn't do it to her specifically, but rather that in the Killing Joke, he shoots her in the midsection first and then he does the things like take the pictures. Point being, I don't think the Joker would rape Barbara Gordon after he incapacitated her via the gunshot. There's no payoff or horror element to it, but it's ambiguous in the comics, so maybe I'm totally wrong. I just never got that vibe from the Joker that he'd rape Barbara like that. If he was going to rape her, he wouldn't have shot her. He would want her to be as healthy as possible to make sure she would survive to tell her father, and more importantly Batman, since it's been theorized that Joker antagonizes Batman for the sake of antagonizing him, and that's why he does all of his crime. The sordid details of exactly what happened, plus for her to live as long as humanly possible, so she could serve as a constant reminder of their failure. That's just how the Joker rolls, in my opinion. This refers to The Dark Knight Strikes Back, where Superman and Wonder Woman are having some rough sex, and this created an earthquake and Batman had to cop block them. By the way, the cop blocking thing was just exaggeration, but yeah, they did create an earthquake via fucking. Post-crisis established that green kryptonite is also harmful to humans. With sufficient long-term exposure, it can result in cancer, as Lex Luthor discovered, much to his dismay, from a ring with a green kryptonite jewel he wore to ward off Superman's presence. Pink kryptonite is a type of kryptonite that seemingly turns Kryptonians homosexual. It is unknown what it would do to an already homosexual Kryptonian, although one could assume it would render them heterosexual. This type of kryptonite only made one appearance in comics and was used as a satire of the plot of Silver Age comic stories featuring some strange new form of kryptonite. Yuga Khan was the most powerful new god that ever existed and the original ruler of Apocalypse for a long time, whose misguided attempt to unravel the unknowable mystery of the Source led to his downfall. Now, in Batman Damned #1, you can clearly see Bruce Wayne's dick. Now, one has to wonder, how does Bruce Wayne get his micropenis to attract so many females? Now, I don't care what you tell me about me not being in the universe, so it doesn't seem big to me. Bruce Wayne's cock is not in this universe. It's non-existent. Look at that thing. It's pretty small. God damn. But I get it. It's not about the size. It's about the potency. Now, people say that Barry Allen died in Crisis on Infinite Earths. However, this is not the case. He did not die, rather he got pulled into the Speed Force by running too fast, which was the fastest he ever ran. This refers to a scheme the Joker pulled where after killing Jason Todd, the Joker pulls a lethal weapon too and is granted diplomatic immunity in the United States. He was also appointed the Iranian ambassador to the UN by the Ayatollah. Grant Morrison is a Scottish comic book writer and playwright. Now, his long list of credits include Batman Arkham Asylum, JLA, New X-Men, Seven Soldiers, Animal Man, Doom Patrol, WE3, and The Filth. In the Golden Age comics, it is shown that Wonder Woman's weakness is that she is not immortal and that one day she will perish like any living creature native to planet Earth. This basically means that her own biological clock is her greatest weakness, counting down to the day of demise, albeit slower than your average human due to her demigod status. However, she's more than likely going to die like anything else. This one's pretty straightforward. So if you guys remember the Flashpoint timeline, you guys know that in this altered timeline, Martha Wayne became the Joker and she's fighting her husband who became the Batman in this timeline. This one is also straightforward. So remember the Nazi Superman comic I was telling you about earlier? Well, the issue opens up with Adolf Hitler in a bathroom stall with a comic book. Fun fact, the guy actually had a passion for scandalous poop sex. And this is an actual study. Oh god. I really wish I didn't have to say those lines. This refers to the theory that perhaps Batman is insane. However, I don't really believe this theory. While I do believe that Batman has PTSD, considering the fact that he watched his parents die at a young age, I believe that Batman is just an extremely rational character. Now, to quote comic book writer John Bryan, when I was just getting into comics professionally, I heard a lot of Batman would have to be insane to do the things he does, to which my response would be, no, you'd have to be insane to do the things Batman does, but Batman is just fine doing them because he's Batman. Batman is driven, focused, doing all he can to make his city a safer place, to prevent any children to go through what he went through. The sword of Superman is described as being an ancient sword that was forged by the Big Bang itself at the beginning of the universe. As a magical sword that chooses its wielder, the sword acts like DC's equivalent to Thor's hammer Mjolnir from Marvel Comics. Yes, there are actual incest panels of Superman and Supergirl. I never thought I'd have to read that in my life, but here we are. In All-Star Batman and Robin number 7, Batman fucked Black Canary and set some criminals on fire. He did this simultaneously, and this turned on Black Canary while they were having sex. I never thought I would have to utter that out of my mouth in my whole entire life. That was the end of Layer 3. Now it's time to move on to Layer 4. Now in Layer 4 there are more theories than Layer 3, and also the things down here in Layer 4 get iffy to say the least. Alright, so let's put this into perspective. Hal Jordan was 23 when he got the Green Lantern ring, which would make him 41 now, and based on the time of this story, he'd probably be in his mid-30s. Aricia is 13 years old, and Aricia had a crush on Hal, and she used her Green Lantern ring to age her body into adulthood, because apparently the Green Lantern ring can do a lot of things that weren't mentioned, and they had sex. Let me reiterate, Hal Jordan, a person who is in his 40s, had sex with a 13-year-old, a minor. Yeah, that is something I never expected me to ever read in my life. And now knowing this, I now look at Green Lantern in a different way. This refers to the theory that perhaps Alfred is the Joker, and this makes no sense because there are a host of reasons for him not being the Joker, but the easiest one to explain is that the Joker spends weeks, months, even years locked up in Arkham Asylum. If Alfred was indeed the Joker, how would these lengthy absences be explained? This refers to the multiple panels within the Silver Age comics of Batman and Robin acting gay. But here's the thing, it's not them acting gay, it's just the panels being taken out of context. Basically, the panels are like the 1960s Batman show, and they're just made to be silly. With context, it's clear that the two aren't gay, but without it, it looks pretty suspect. Rao is a fictional star in the DC Comics universe. It is the red supergiant that the planet Krypton orbited. The title also refers to a supervillain of the same name and same Kryptonian etymology. He is also the ancestor of Superman in all continuities. Attempting to reunite with her husband, Ray Palmer, who is the Atom, Jean Loring had used his equipment to try to create a threat to the families of other superheroes in an attempt to prompt Ray to come back to her. Now, Loring didn't intend for Sue to be seriously hurt, but by traveling down the phone line to jump into Sue Dimy's head, she unintentionally caused an aneurysm that killed Sue. Lauren then panicked and severely burned Sue's body to mask the true cause of her death. Over the course of the series, it is revealed that Sue was raped by Dr. Light in an attempt to prevent him from harming members of other superheroes' families. Now, Zatanna attempted to magically rehabilitate Dr. Light, which resulted in wiping his brain. Batman, in fact, wanted another punishment for Dr. Light, but his mind was also wiped by Zatanna, erasing his memories of his involvement in events. Now, initially, people had thought that Dr. Light had killed Sue, but after Dr. Midnight and Mr. Terrific carried out an autopsy, it confirmed that Sue had not been killed by anything that would constitute Light's standard MO, with a casual comment Jean made by Ray prompting him to realize the truth, resulting in him sending Jean to Arkham and disappearing from the JLA. Now, honestly, in my opinion, Sue shouldn't have been killed. That plot, that point, it was completely useless. It didn't do anything to the story at all. It was just completely unnecessary. I don't know why they added that in there. Now, Batman wasn't a billionaire. He never started out as a billionaire. When Batman was first created, Batman was just wealthier than most. He basically inherited his parents' money after their deaths. Now, Bruce Wayne is worth billions thanks to the Wayne fortune and his company Wayne Enterprises. He was a wealthy man, but over the time, millionaire became billionaire. What I'm saying is that no, Bruce Wayne never started out as a billionaire. He was just a millionaire. Limbo in DC refers to a fictional location in which first appeared in Ambush Bug number 3 created by Keith Green. In other words, Limbo is a place of the forgotten, where all outdated comic book characters go, the forgotten, the unpopular, the silly ones, basically those who no longer appeal to the reader's taste. The Extremists are a team of supervillains based on Marvel Comics characters who usually fight against the Justice League. It is led by Lord Havoc, also featuring Dr. Diehorde, Dreamslayer, Gorgon, and the Tracer as regular members. Yeah, so the Golden Age Wonder Woman comics were not that great. As a matter of fact, they were mostly offensive. One such example in terms of racism is where they encounter a couple of Axis agents in the form of two Mexicans, Pancho, a phony ranch hand, and Pepita, your standard issue spicy Latina. And as if the racism couldn't get any worse and the stereotyping couldn't get any worse, did I mention Pepita is an expert bullfighter? Yeah, so there was a crossover between Lobo and Mask. Although the comedy, it's kind of lowbrow. Overall, the comic's kind of just mediocre at best, downright awful at worst. Yeah, so the Joker once skinned a guy alive. Normally I'd be surprised, but this is the Joker we're talking about. So the Joker skinned a guy named Monty alive for taking over his business place and hiring Harley Quinn as a stripper. Emperor Joker was a form the Joker took after tricking Mr. Mikyespito into donating 99.99% of his reality powers to him, and as a direct result, he became near omnipotent and created a hellish world in his own image. James Gordon Jr. is the son of James Gordon and Barbara Gordon. Now, in contrast to his father's work in the GCPD as an ally to Batman, James Jr. is a psychopath and remorseless killer. Now, he left Gotham and subsequently disappeared. It is heavily implied that he went on a killing spree across the country. Escaping confinement in Command D, Batman uses the Radiant Bullet to mortally wound Darkseid, while Darkseid in turn kills Batman with his Omega Beams. Now, this could be referring to a lot of things. It could be referring to Joker's unborn son who passed away when Jenny Napier, that's the Joker's wife, died in a household accident in The Killing Joke. It could also be referring to his daughter Lucy, who the Joker didn't know existed, or it could be referring to that time he brainwashed Dick Grayson. As I said, it could be referring to a lot of things. And that's it for layer 4. Now it's time to move on to layer 5. And layer 5 is pretty short because there's only one entry. So yeah, Aquaman eats fish. Now before you call him a cannibal, he really isn't. You see, mermaids and mermen are more related to manatees than they are actual fish. Manatees are classified as mammals, and not to mention that certain species of manatees eat fish. So no, this doesn't really make Aquaman a cannibal. Yeah, it's pretty weird, but he's not a cannibal. If he was eating other manatees or other mermaids, then yeah, it would be very fucking cannibalistic. And that was the DC Iceberg. So I realized that I haven't been releasing a whole lot of iceberg videos. As a matter of fact, the last iceberg video I did was 2 months ago. And the reason for that is because exams, schoolwork, all of that was keeping me up. Thankfully, I am now on summer break, which means I get to release all the iceberg videos, do whatever I want. Now, I will be taking a short break after I release this iceberg, and that's because I've pretty much been sleep deprived. I stayed up for nights doing this. I stayed up till 3 a.m., which is not really good for a 14-year-old, so I'll just be sleeping all of that off. So if you want to see more content from me, check out my second channel, Enigmite F, where I upload every Friday. Also, join my Discord and follow me on Twitter. Alright, that's all I have to do. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.